So let's move on to further conditional decisions. And here I have names of applicants, and they have requested certain amounts and their status, whether that was approved or rejected, and from where they belong, let's say north, south, east, west, whatever. So here, basically, this scenario tells us about how to use the count functions. So in Excel, in Google Sheets and Excel both, there are multiple count functions, and they can be used to make different kinds of decisions. So, for example, we want to count the total number of applications. So to count total number of applications, we are going to use the formula count start bracket here, and we can count the numbers like this. We can count a range and press enter. So it tells us that these are 6 values. Okay. So basically the count function is what it does is it is specific for numbers. So in a column, if there are numbers and there are names or other kinds of text, so what it does is it ignores all the text fields and only count the number fields. So if you are trying to determine how many numbers or values are there in a column, so you will use only the count function. But if you want to count the names as well, all kinds of values, whether they are numbers or text, so you will need to use count a function. So count actually counts anything. So if I use this and select this column now, so it should give me the correct number, which is 8. So it is basically counting the numbers as well as names. Okay. So, but what if I want to count on the number of applicants that have been approved only? Okay. So to do that, I will use the function COUNTIF. And COUNTIF does a conditional count. That means that we can specify a condition and it will only count the values with that specific condition. So let's say I'm selecting this entire column. I'm selecting the range. Just a moment. And I need to specify a criterion. So what is the criterion? Let's say I want to select the approved candidates only. So I can write it in inverted commas, and out of the column D, it will count only those cells which are approved. So there are 3 approved. And similarly, I can count rejected here, and it will tell me how many values have been rejected. 1 is pending, so that is not being counted in either of those. Okay, so but if I want to count based on multiple conditions, because COUNTIF does not allow me to specify more than 1 conditions. So how can I specify if I want to I want to count the number of candidates who were from North region. So for that, I need to use another formula for count, that is COUNTIFS. So COUNTIFS, you can specify multiple criteria in COUNTIFS to count a specific range. And to do that, we can specify, for example, let's say we want to count the names, or we can simply select column D, entire column D, and we can specify the criteria that is approved, and then I can specify the second range, let's say column A, and I can specify the criteria for that range. So here the criteria is North, for example. So I can specify 2 here. I have 2 ranges and 2 criteria for each of the range. It can be an entire column, or it can be a subset of a column or a row any way you want, but you can specify multiple ranges. So here I can see that there are 2 approved candidates from North. Okay, so another way to do this is that I can specify the criteria over here. Let's say I don't want to write the name in this, and I can remove this from here, and I can select the cell which has, sorry, it is, let's move it up here. So I want to use this cell as my criteria instead of fixing. This is called hard coding. You are writing certain text inside it. So sometimes you want it to change, and you don't want people to be changing formulas, especially if they are not very competent with using Google Sheets or Excel, so they can mess up the formulas. So instead of doing this, I can click this cell. So now this the text inside this is being used as a condition here. So I can press enter. So it gives me how many approved applicants are there from North, and let's say how many are there from East. I can just change the value inside the cell, and the value is automatically updated. Similarly, I can use one cell for rejected as well, for the condition for rejected or approved. And here no one was rejected from East. Let's say, what about North? No one for North. Let's say South. So 2 people were rejected from South. And how many were accepted from South? No one was accepted from South. So this way, I can either hard code the values inside the formulas, or I can use some helper cells where I can specify the value, and when that value changes, so my formula does not have to change each time. So you can make a combination of values and conditions to decide what to do. Similarly, the scenario for summing functions is pretty much the same. You can the only exception is that there is the sum function is just for normal summing. So conditional sums are actually you can use conditional statements inside the sum as we did for COUNTIF. To calculate the total, we can just use the sum function and an entire column, even if there is certain text. So we are sure that the text will not be summed up. But if we want to sum the expenses for a specific category, let's say for this one, we can write office here. So we can use SUMIF function. Okay. So SUMIF allows me to specify a range and a criterion. Let's say this criterion. But the problem is that it isn't that simple. So the values are not the criterion themselves. So basically what happens is that the sum function gives us a third option where we can specify the sum range. So the first range then becomes the range for the criterion. So in this case, this is B. So B can contain our criterion, which is in H2, and then we need to specify the range where the actual values are. So what it does is it will look for rows where there is office, and it will sum those rows. So there you go. We have the sum for office, which is 3,900. Similarly, we can do marketing, and the sum for marketing is 5,500. But what if we want to specify multiple conditions? So for that, we want to, for example, in this scenario, we want to select a specific category, and in that category, we want to select a specific department and then determine their amount. So there are 2 conditions, category and the department. And for department, let's say we have admin department, and let's say we have office here. So let's use SUMIFS. So we have multiple conditions, more than one condition, so we can use SUMIFS. If is for multiple conditions. So first option here is the sum range. the column that will be summed. So we can select D here and comma criteria range. So this is the criteria 1, and the what is the criteria? It is office. And similarly, the second criteria, the column for second criteria, and what is the value for second criteria? It is admin. Okay, and I can close the parentheses and press enter. So office and admin. So rows for office and admin are total sum up to be 3,900. So this way, let's say if I change it to sales, so it is 0. And let's say if I change it to marketing, this becomes 4,500. So this way, I can sum the values based on multiple conditions. So we have 3 formulas for summing. One is just for summing. The other one is for one condition. And the third one is for using multiple conditions and then summing the values. Okay. So similarly, if we want, we can compare, we can calculate on the basis of dates as well.